turkey sandwich first.
Oh, okay.
Most days we meet it.
That's Robert playing all the instruments, by the way.
Oh, really? Okay. I've heard that da-da-da, a few introductions. Pretty good little, what do they call that, riff?
Uh-huh. Well, now good. All right, gang, you are on KCXL with Steve Barnhart Extravaganza. And today we got a special guest from Miami, not John, Robert. We'll get to him in just a minute.
She's in Florida somewhere today, right, Dave?
Yeah, well, she ain't here. Robert, you know what they say about the cat's away.
And we loaded him in. We got Catfish Joe here today, and he's over there having a little breakfast. Can I say that? But so he's out of the view of our specially live broadcast show that's as big as the Elvis concert was back when they went international.
We're getting ready to do a road trip, hopefully either this weekend or next weekend with Joe and Larry Rentz and you, of course, Steve, to the White Castle in Columbia. We
White
don't have
Castle.
one in Kansas City anymore.
We're gonna partake. I'll have to refrain from eating anything fat for the next week after going there.
Can we just take the party bus out in the parking lot?
Yeah, we could get Elvis to drive.
Elvis too to drive us down. It probably cost us $600 to drive to Columbia from here.
Yeah, just for a 10-cent hamburger.
That'll be some expensive $600 White Castle burgers.
Well, just take the experience though.
Well, give us what you got, Steve, and we'll get Robert potted.
Well, today, welcome to the Steve Barnhart Show, featuring Steve Barnhart, and as all the politicians need to be saying, and of course, I approved this message. What do you think, Joe? Doesn't that add much more authenticity? Of course they approve it. We know they approve it.
Yes.
But of course, I approve this message. Today we got a special guest, and I have discussed a few things with our next guest, and it is the Traveling Bob Morales Show.
Robert.
Traveling Robert knows what he goes by here, but on a personal level, would cut that short. And he's going to talk to us about some of the neat things and some of the neat places we can go, and some of the neat stuff that you can go when you go there. Perhaps we could discuss some good values for people these days, maybe some specials. I know at one time, Dave, before we put Traveling Bob on, used to be able to become a travel agent online. And if you were certified through one of the two major ones, the easy one to get was CLIA, and cruise line ship. I had that at one time, was able to enjoy a few vacations pretty darn cheap. Then they tightened it up where you actually had to be getting a paycheck from a travel agency to be able to obtain the good travel credentials. But we got Traveling Bob here today to discuss some of that stuff with us. And the music you heard that Bob will have to tell us about that. He is a professional musician, and that was one of his songs. And I believe he played one or more of the instruments and kind of blended it together, Dave. Is that correct?
That's it. So let's get him on.
Let's get him on here, see what's going on down in Miami, where it's 80 degrees.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, you could send some of that warm weather up here. We won't mind.
Yeah,
That's right.
That'd be good. As I was thinking, this is the best time of the year in Miami because it is not too hot, not too cold. It's perfect. It's like 70s in the morning, 80s in the afternoon. You gotta head down here for a vacation. Let me tell you.
That's really tough to handle, Bob. I'm glad you could share 70 in the morning and 80 in the afternoon, and that's just lovely. We just really feel the pain here.
I can imagine. I gotta head your way one of these days. I'm gonna make it to Kansas City.
Well, you realize once you taste some of that Kansas City barbecue, you probably won't want to go back to Miami.
I know, man. I know, and I've tasted some great barbecue around the country, but I'm sure I'm gonna fall in love with Kansas City. I have a feeling.
Yep. The barbecue.
This coming spring, I have plans to be there.
Well, you do. We'll make sure we'll put together a little program here for you, and we'll take you out to La Ciudad de Kansas City.
Si, senor. Yes, that would be great.
I got to know more about this Lobster Fest stuff he's got posted.
Traveling Bob?
Yeah.
We better let him get on with it. We want to fill us in on some good deals, some travel locations that may be a little different from people from what they're familiar with. Some good deals maybe this time of year or all year round. And I know if you go through Traveling Bob, I think you're going to get a good deal whenever you do business with him. So carry on, Traveling Bob.
Well, this time of the year, I would stick to the south, unless you like skiing or something like that. And about deals, all the Florida state parks, if you can get into any of them this time of the year, it's so beautiful and they're very inexpensive, especially if you like camping, which is what I do. You know, I travel with a travel trailer, and that's and now out in Arizona in January they have the Quartzites RV show, and it's thousands of people. They just gather on Bureau of Land Management, you know, BLM free land, and they just boondock out there, and it's free for 14 days. You can stay there for free.
Uh-huh.
And where was that?
This is Quartzsite, Arizona. It's a small town. It's a couple of thousand people in the summer, but this time of the year, it's probably 250,000 people, or at least 100,000. And it's between Phoenix and the California border.
Oh, okay.
That's a pretty big area.
Yeah.
So
it's a very small town.
Just
pointed on the map.
just drive around till you find it, huh?
Yeah.
So out of all places you've traveled, what would probably be your favorite place and why?
As far as awe-inspiring place, like the natural beauty, which is most of what I do, I would have to say the Grand Canyon. Actually, I just published a video about the Grand Canyon this morning.
Cool.
And it's one of these places that it's the grandeur of it. You know, you can take a picture, but the picture will never convey the experience of being there. And I tell everybody, just go to the Grand Canyon at least once in your life. And this time I did the North Rim, which is the northern part. It's more isolated, less people. It's a little greener. It's not as much desert as the South Rim, but the views are just as beautiful.
Have they ever figured out what do they call them, the astronauts, not physical astronauts, but the like Kevin, the conspiracy astronauts and all them, about the origin of the Grand Canyon? Have they ever came up with a good explanation possibly on how that came to be, Bob? Do you know?
Well, so one of the comments this morning on the video, actually, someone said is that the waters from you know the great flood, you know, the Noah's Ark flood, what's it called? When the waters receded, that's what created the Grand Canyon. That
Right.
The Colorado River has nothing to do with it. So, you know, that's one of the theories.
Oh, by the way, that rock that you said looked like Homer Simpson, I hate to tell you, to me it looked like he was given the finger.
Wow.
That's another awesome place. That's the Valley of the Gods in Utah. And it's another one of those super isolated.
David over there.
And the greatest part of that is at night. You can see stars that you've never seen before in your life. You can see the Milky Way up there. It's incredible.
Yeah, watching you drive that road on a 55-inch TV, going around those curves with no guardrails, you feel it even where I'm sitting. I can imagine what you were feeling.
Yeah, it's and I took the easy
posted
route
about
going north. That they're talking about the $1 million highway, I think, in
Yeah,
Colorado.
Right.
But if you take it into Silverton, you are on the outside part of the road. You're just right there on the edge to the abyss.
Silverton, don't they have a railway, something to Silverton?
They have the Durango Silverton Railroad, and that's it's an old steam engine. It's a narrow gauge railroad, and I didn't get a chance to do it this time around. But one of these days, I drove it instead of riding the train.
Isn't that a several hour ride on that train?
Yeah, because that train goes like 30, 40 miles per hour. From Durango to Silverton, a little over an hour by car. So yeah.
That was an enjoyable ride, and it gives you time to kind of enjoy the scenery. But a lot of it looks repetitive, but it's still just the attraction. And I remember I did it once. I enjoyed it. We did the Branson train. That's right.
Yeah.
That's another one you're going to have to check out. Robert, Branson, Missouri. I know it's, of course, there's a few campgrounds down there. But
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely heard of Branson, and I was gonna go actually last fall, but at some point I decided I had to go back home to Miami. But a friend of mine, well, he did invite me to a rally in Branson, Missouri. Yep.
Oh yeah, there's always something going on down there.
It's a national like monument now. Branson's considered. I remember back years ago, and they had about 5 buildings there when I was a kid, and they always said that Branson would be nothing ever compared to Bagnell Dam. Bagnell Dam was just a short block. But then, of course, Branson, kept on and kept on and kept on.
See, when you come up here, if you want to do one of your Cuban music shows, Joe has got a laser light show that will, you can see it from the moon. It's that big.
He can do I have the karaoke machine, 3,000 watts with wireless mics and the whole setup. So if we want to do an extravaganza.
Yeah, we're gonna have ourselves a little concert. Let me tell you.
We could, yeah.
So when you were up in the Grand Canyon, I was just watching a little bit of the video. The buffalo, all of them buffaloes running across. How cool was that?
That was amazing, and if you wait a couple of weeks, I have another video from Yellowstone National Park, and then you can even imagine that 10 times over. But yeah, the bison are really cool to see because you don't get to see them as often, It's not like a deer that you see them every once in a while on the road, and they're really cool animals.
Oh yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
So I see you've been doing a lot of cooking in the RV, your little cooking show segments. You got any other goodies coming up in the future that's got beef in it this time? I'm not a fish lover, so.
What's for dinner?
Yeah. Well, last time I was in Alabama last month, and I went to a rally, and I won one of those instant pots. It's like a pressure cooker.
Oh yeah.
So I'm gonna try to start modifying some of my recipes to cook on the Instant Pot because everybody who owns an RV seems to own one of those and they seem to like it. So
that would be
fantastic. I've got one myself, and it's like something that used to take 2 hours. You can do in 10 minutes.
Well, you could do Bob's traveling cooking.
Yeah.
That would be might be a good. People would be interested in that. Things that they can prepare and nice meals on the road. That's not real.
Almost every video I try to include at least one recipe somewhere in the middle of the video. I call it the Robert's RV Cooking Show. That's what I do.
Well, you have to put Traveling Bob in your pocket and hit the road.
Yeah.
So what else this time? I mean, I'm always interested in winter. I know there's a lot of good deals. Of course, you'd want to make sure there's plenty. If I went somewhere, I'll make sure there's plenty of sunshine, blue water, and not brown. I think probably your best affordable or best deal would probably be somewhere in Mexico.
Well, definitely with the currency exchange. I've never been actually. I've been to Mexico, but not RV. But a lot of people this time of the year, in the winter, they go to Baja, and there's a bunch of pretty decent RV parks down there, and it's super inexpensive. And you wash your car and do your laundry, and for very little money, you can have a great time down there. Also, Puerto Vallarta, which is a little further south. A lot of RVers do their winters down there as well.
Well, I know that driving in Mexico in an RV, we'd have to be well versed because back when we had a house in Costa Rica, down in Carriari, you ever heard of Carriari? Down in Costa Rica, we had a house.
Never heard of it.
Very elite district. We had a house down there for about a year, and so some of the people, we had a program that we're in was called a factoring program where people were investing money, and they'd done real well with it for about 21 years. But a lot of people moved there, and the reason they moved there was because of this program, and they were getting fantastic returns on their money. But they says, don't try to drive through Mexico with anything of any value because you'll never make it.
Yeah.
So
well, there's one corridor. The information for fellow RVers here. There's one corridor on the west coast of Mexico that goes down to Puerto Vallarta, and it's like a toll road. I mean, most people do it in a caravan of 3 or 4 or more RVs, but that particular corridor is safe because everybody goes to those RV parks down there.
Good.
But yeah, I wouldn't venture any further south with a large motorhome. No.
No, well, and I've actually heard people, the true stories from bringing appliances down where they'd get a new appliance and take the old ball peen hammer. Why, it didn't hurt the integrity of the machine. They tore the heck out of the casings, and the bad guys didn't want that type of stuff because they couldn't sell it, and even cheaply. So anyway, we heard stories about people actually damaging things when they brought through there in the hopes that they could drive all the way from USA to Central America.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So I
gotta take your precautions, everything.
I know I'm planning something. I want to go on. Besides, we talked about the island of Montserrat, and if you remember that, you have to go to Antigua, and then you either take a puddle jumper plane or the ferry to go to Montserrat. But that is the island, part of the British West Indies, and which is actually governed. They have a governor there that's appointed by from the UK, but the volcano took out most of the houses that were kind of built into the back of the platform, kind of like cliff dwellings there. And the Beach Boys and the Beatles and a couple other big groups used to go to their recording studio built into the side of that hill. And, and since then, it's come down. In fact, the last time I was there, I rode the little I call it the puddle jumper plane, back with the minister of the island, and he was on his way to the royal wedding. So it was kind of interesting sitting next to him and his family and riding the plane over there, and we got to know them. We have a licensed university there on the island and licensed medical school. So me having a free office in the Caribbean that I go to very little, that's going to change before long. But if you ever go to Montserrat, hopefully maybe I can meet you there, and we can put you up for a few days right there in the university.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I haven't visited. For someone who was born on an island in the Caribbean, I haven't visited the Caribbean enough. So yeah, I should definitely head down there.
Well, isn't that the way it goes from where you live? And there's so many things around all of us, and I'm sure you find that out and can tell us things like that. But Kansas City's got a fairly, hot spot in the nation here now. And even out where I was born and where I grew up, out in Edwardsville, Kansas, they have the Legends out there where they have the big Indy 500 track, and they've got all the big stores and, the water sliding theme parks and every place you can think of to eat at and shop. And I sold my house in 1996 for $92,000, and the last offer on it here recently was $500,000, and they turned it down. So we waited for 30 years for them to put a turnpike in. And so anywhere out there, my house still sits out there about an eighth of a mile one side of Interstate 70, and if you look on the north side of Interstate 70, about an eighth of a mile, it says Legends, or is it Legends? No, it's does it say Legends?
Yeah.
Yeah, it says Legends. Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, eighth of a mile either way. You can see my house one way, the same distance there. You can see the big, advertisement for the Speedway and all that. So I was a little bit, just a day short, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, that's some stuff in Kansas City here when you come. You probably want to check out. Zona Rosa may be another area you might want to check out. And then, of course, the Country Club Plaza. And we have, we're famous internationally for the Country Club Plaza and the Plaza Light ceremony, which is thousands and thousands of lights. And they usually turn that on come Thanksgiving, and it's a sight to see as well. So those would be 4 areas you might want to consider. But I guess we'd like to hear some more too. What we can do, some good buys, some good places we can go here. It's cold in Kansas City where we can go in and warm up a bit.
All right.
Well, anywhere south. I mean, California is also a great place to be this time of the year, by the way. Southern California, where did I go? last time. Well, there's San Diego, of course, and Los Angeles. But I don't know exactly. I'm drawing a blank here on live radio, but
well, I'm looking at. I've been to Los Angeles. I used to like to go to Chinatown and go shopping there. We stayed at Hotel del Coronado, which was
Coronado. That's in San Diego, yes.
Yeah, that's a very nice place right out there on the water. I remember going to San Diego one year, and this has been a long time ago because I remember it being their 75th anniversary. Mm-hmm. And so that's been probably 25 years ago. They probably had their 100th. And then, of course, in 1962, the Queen Elizabeth used to be out there on the coast somewhere. Being on the Queen Elizabeth, and when I was a kid, we were there in Alcatraz, which always interested me. There were some Indians living out, I think they were squatting out there on the island of Alcatraz. But clear back in 1962, we went on a vacation for 2 weeks, and I don't know how many, drove about 4,000 miles in 2 weeks, which you got to be moving pretty good to do that.
Yeah. And let me tell you something, the whole Pacific coast is one of the most beautiful areas of this country. And I think any time of the year, because it never gets too warm in the summer, it never gets too cold in the winter because of the ocean, the effect of the ocean. And I just did most of that coast last summer, and just going up from San Francisco, the whole 101, and then the Oregon coast, and it's a beautiful area.
Yeah, that cold, I guess that cold water, like I never could figure out when I was a kid. I said, why don't you just jump in and swim? Of course,
in August, the temperature difference is so high that they call it fog, because it's always fog in the mornings. You can't see anything.
Yeah. Well, of course, L.A., it's been like that for all the pollution for years and years. You could look out over L.A. But I remember back in 1962, we were at Knott's Berry Farm. Do they still have that?
I know we have one here in Florida. I'm sure they still have the one in LA too. Yeah.
Well, you were able to pay like $5, and you could actually pan for gold, real gold, Joe. It was a little bottle. The reason I brought that up, I still have that little bottle of gold that I panned in 1962.
I did that in Branson once, and then me and my daughter found out it was fake gold.
Well, talking about that, I'll tell our listeners, talking about gold. Now, I'm sure, I don't know, Bob, if you're watching this live on our show here or not, but I do Dr. B's health and wealth programs, and as part of my wealth building program, this little bottle of purported gold foil. People look at that and they say, "Geez, what's that worth?" I said, "Well, you might be able to get a dime out of that, maybe. It'd be probably more like a penny, but if you took a gold coin." And you could, a 1 ounce gold coin, and you could mash it as thin as what I'm holding in my hand, and to our viewers and listeners, you could tile this whole floor in this office if it's that thin. If you took that and wadded it up, it'd be about half the size of a buckshot or less. I mean, I don't know how they make it that thin. It's just like it looks amplified in there, and it almost, when you touch it, it almost dissolves on your finger. That's how thin that is. But I got those, and sometimes I just give those to people that do business with me through many of the opportunities available with Dr. B's health and wealth programs. In fact, Bob needs to probably take a look at many people as he talks to, and as many people as you know. I've got a couple of dandy programs I'd like to get you some information on, but I usually give these to people. And while I'm talking here, Bob, I wanted to show our listeners, I also brought in some money with me. And the reason I bring this up, Traveling Bob, if you've ever been to these countries, here is a $50 trillion note that I have from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. And I'm showing it online here, but I've got, I forget, but I've got, I don't know how many $1 trillion here, but just think if that even went up just a fraction of its value, and you had, hundreds of thousands of trillions.
yeah, I've heard of those $1 trillion from Zimbabwe.
Well, I got a whole pack. And then I also have, this here, which is not quite as bad. Vietnamese in Vietnam, they use a currency called the dong. And of course, you can pick you up about, 12 million dong you can get for about $600. And of course, the value of this stuff, you're not going to really ever lose anything. But it's part of my Health and Wealth Builders program. I can't share too much on air here because it's reserved for my friends, relatives, lovers and concubines. How's that? Can we say that on radio, Joe?
Yeah, why not?
Why not? Concubine, that's a good one.
Concubine.
A lot of people don't know what that is, but as part of our wealth building, the reason I brought that up is with your travels, you've probably heard about some of the ridiculous denominations that you have in countries. And, I mean, why would you have $100 trillion note and have to deal with all those numbers and you go in and buy yourself a...
They had some hyperinflation in these countries a while back, right? And it's
Well, if you talk to Dr. B, I think we're going to see those. I probably shouldn't say this on air, but I think we're going to see some of this stuff rise in value. So if you had I see a few $100 billion trillion in one of these, and you just find a mild shift in the overall economy in that country. And, you know, it also gets down, we have Kevin, I know, on our show. You know Kevin, Joe?
Yeah.
Kevin, he talks about the conspiracy theories and things like that. But, you know, the new world order, the new world currency, slowly but surely, you know, we're having they call it a paradigm shift, but it's a shift of events. And, of course, a minor shift in events can have a overall devastating net result. And if that does happen, and somebody has the right type of money and currency, and of course that's not getting into survival gear and all that kind of stuff. But so I guess, Bob, I'd be interested too. As kind of a backyard survivalist. I'm not a fanatic about it, not an extremist about it, but just active. There we go. So I guess I would be an activist. Well, anyway, maybe what would be some countries or places, or even in the United States that you know of where somebody, if the proverbial, you know, caca hit the fan, where a person may want to go, or a person may want to live, or that would be interesting, I think, to our listeners, because we used to be a for the people radio station. And I think a lot, don't Dave, some of our original listeners that still have that concept and bias, they probably still listen.
Oh, mostly.
And we got to get back into that. But Bob, maybe some safe places you could go, maybe take your RV, and because I'm thinking about buying an RV just to have one. And maybe someplace we could go or visit or stay if the economy got tough. Well, we may have a chance at survival, and that means possibly some wildlife, possibly some fish, possibly some water that everybody in the world may not go. And of course, you can share that secret with our listeners here.
Well, I would say actually somewhere out there, maybe on the shore of one of the few rivers in Arizona, let's call it, maybe the Colorado.
Southwestern Belt 25-year rain.
Properly
this here,
RV,
Shriner's 37.
Survive for weeks or months, you know, having the right amount of food and being able to harvest that. I'm a big fan of having, you know, solar panels and big batteries and holding tanks. They don't get earthquakes or hurricanes or tornadoes or anything like that. So that's a big
And where was that you were saying again?
I would go either out west because there's so much land out there.
Yeah.
That you could just plop down, you know, and so much. Find a nice creek for water and just stay up there. It's sunny most of the day, so you get power, and you can fish, you can hunt.
I guess that'd be something, you know, that might be something that you could add to your services, where a person was interested maybe in going somewhere or buying a little piece of property or having something for survivalists. That might be something you might want to implement, you know, into your program or into your package.
Yeah. Well, I'm searching for that perfect property somewhere out there in the middle of nowhere, with very little regulation, where I could, in case of emergency or in case of I'm traveling through the area, just, you know, plop down with my RV and stay there, you know, like a home base.
Well, you sound like that, but I think that would add some a little umph to your program. That's just me, but if you could hit it on a minor aspect about survivalism and traveling and equipment and things with your RV and all that, you're already got a good start in that area anyway. But some of those survivalists, you may be able to get additional travel recognition or additional customers by promoting that type of location as far as their travels.
Yeah, and all our viewers are a little bit like that. You have to be self-sustained if anything goes wrong, or if you have to stay out there for one night. So if you break down, you always have to be prepared as an RVer and be able to to solve any problem you have on your own, you know,
Yeah.
not rely on services. Like, for example, this summer I'm planning on going to Alaska. I'm going to be on some stretches of very isolated road, and I could incorporate that to my program for sure.
I think probably if you were doing that, you know, I'm a fire marshal here for the Inner City Fire Protection District, and Bob, I'm also a former sheriff and policeman and private detective, and currently a team member of the FBI's InfraGuard program to help protect our nation's infrastructure.
I got to know one
Yeah.
thing, Robert. Tell us about a Miami Christmas.
Oh, we have palm trees with Christmas lights. No, well, in all seriousness, yeah, that's what people do down here. We have this big park just southwest of Miami that they make it into Santa's Enchanted Forest, and they have fake snow. It's great. It's beautiful.
Feliz Navidad with the palm trees there. Well,
Yeah,
Bob,
palm trees and fake snow.
I'll tell you a good one on the palm trees. Remember, I'm the guy that can relate to almost any topic. And back several years ago, a friend of mine, he came up with the idea of called paradise palms. And they were artificial palm trees. And if you're ever in Branson, I think Dave and I talked about this, and I believe it was, what's that singer that used to be The Streak and all that? Ray Stevens? Well, anyway, I went down with him when he sold all the palm trees, all those fake palm trees that Ray Stevens had in his place for years, was through a friend of mine. So anyway, he called me one day. He says, "Guess who just bought 4 of my palm?" These were full size. In fact, with George C. Scott, there was a fake palm tree in there, and he had bought that original mold. So anyway, he called me and said the Beach Boys just purchased 4 of his palm trees, and the cocoa palms kind of go cross each other. One smaller, it gives you the best effect as far as a visual and warming effect and palm and paradise. But anyway, they bought them. So what happened was I ended up buying 2 trees from him from my backyard in Edwardsville. And I had them back there by my pool and my hot tub and my closed-in area and my office out back. And so anyway, I asked him, I said, what is the chances of me taking 2 of the Beach Boys palm trees, putting in my backyard, and you give them 2 brand new ones? He goes, well, I don't see any problem at all. In fact, they probably go for it. Brand new, trade. So anyway, the reason I did that, when I put them in my backyard, they were 2 of the Beach Boys palm trees, is what I kind of grew up with for several years out there in my little party palace in my backyard. In fact, I was there one day, I was cutting grass, and a guy stopped on the street, and he rolled his window down. I turned the motor off, and he says, "Hey, those won't grow here." And then he drove off. So anyway, Bob, we had that. A couple of years later, we put some coconuts on them because they were called coca palms. And so anyway, Bob, so I actually had some fake palm trees that looked real in my backyard for several years. And I had lights down at the ground that kind of showed up in the air. And we had put some lights on them one year, a few lights for Christmas. So I had coca palms in Edwardsville, Kansas for holiday season one year. What do you think of that? That's pretty good, huh?
I love it.
We had a hot tub out there and the lights and all that. You can just sit out there at night with snow on your head and do what you're doing. Joe's doing a little dance over here. I think you're a palm tree blowing in the wind, right?
There you go.
Okay, I figured it out.
We just need a drink with a little umbrella, and
That's what I want. That's what I want. That's all I want. Just a little drink, fancy umbrella, be down there with Bob, 80-degree weather, and
Let's just let Pope David here, sing, and let's just go to the bar right now.
I think Pope Dave is being, what do they call it? Pope Dave, I think he's being, the Lord's working on him, trying conversion. I think he's going through a conversion process on us on air here because the words of Johnny are rubbing off on him. So I think is that true, Dave?
God help us all. Hey, Robert, by any chance are you anywhere close to Gloria Estefan, since she lives in Miami too?
Relatively close. Whenever I go to Miami Beach, I just pass by next to her house. But they won't let me in for some reason.
We haven't hung out there long enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're probably more popular than she is now.
Well, right now, maybe, yeah. Who knows? Yeah. But So yeah, she lives in an island there in the intercoastal, beautiful area too.
Well, Bob, I got a question for you too. It's always kind of fascinated with me is in your travels and even where you live and all that. Do you ever see or pass by or see some of the stars or big figures down there in your town?
Not really. I mean, I've seen a couple of people, but I don't here in town. I don't go out as much, believe it or not. I usually go to places when I travel, and when I stay home here, I just hunker down and work more than anything. But I've seen a few people. I saw Emilio Stefan once in an elevator. You know, Gloria's husband.
Oh, okay.
And then yeah.
Well, I seen Elvis here a couple weeks ago in Kansas City here, but
You mean he's alive?
well, no. The rumor is that he's dead. Because everybody knows that he's alive, you know. So the new rumor is that he's actually dead. It's kind of like when you follow somebody and you say don't run any red lights. Well, I said, did you run a red light? He says, no, it was green by the time I got through it again. You were so far ahead. Get it?
Oh man.
So how much do you travel a year? Are you doing it kind of full time or?
Well, I'm doing it more and more now that I'm doing YouTube full time. But I'd say last year, or I mean this year, 2019, I was out there for probably 5 or 6 months in total. Yeah.
Okay.
So half the time, yeah.
Well, I've got to go.
And that's what I do. I travel for 3 months at a time, and I don't get time out there to be editing the videos and the production and all that.
So how much does Ellie get to go with you?
I'm sorry?
Is that your wife, Ellie?
My wife, Ellie, unfortunately, she's not able to travel with me all the time. Hopefully that'll change in the future. But she flies. You know what I do? You know, I do the long drive to California, and then she will fly to Las Vegas. And we'll hang out for a couple of days, for a couple of weeks, and then she'll fly back, and then she'll fly to Seattle, for example. It is it's far away, and and then we'll hang out for 1 week or two, and that's how we're doing it right now.
Yeah, I noticed she don't like to get on camera too much, does she?
No, she's very private about that. Yes.
Well, we want to give her a shout out anyway, just so you know, she knows that we know.
We're thinking about it.
I'm
How's
sure
that?
she's listening, so yeah, sure.
We're thinking about it, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I got a question for you. I've got to, when I pretty much out of the security and alarm business, other than security consulting, if you still want to do and buy the right thing, or if you want a certain degree of security, I'm the guy to talk to. There's not much I'm not familiar with out there. But that being said, I'm also an academic and education specialist, and I work with lots of foreign students and foreign universities. We accredit private universities, and one of our newest affiliations is in the country of Zambia. Do you know anything about Zambia at all, or have you heard anything about
I know it's in Africa.
Oh, there you go. Okay, all right. I did get that one right. But anyway, I need to go. It'll, of course, will be an all-expense-paid trip. But in Zambia, we've got a university down there, and actually it's an association of universities. It's 30 private universities, and they are considering our organization to be an official private accreditor down there. The government down there will have one governmental type accrediting commission, kind of like our CHIA, and regional accreditors and national accreditors, and they will also have a private accreditor. So I feel once we're able to accomplish this in one country, that our services will be in demand in other countries. And I know I'm also invited. I don't think it's all expenses paid, but I can stay there in Uganda. And I don't know about a white-haired guy, that and fair skin, in some of those countries like that. But we're actually there are still organizations down there that are represented by a king. In the hierarchy of the king, they're still kind of more or less an honorary type leader, but the king has actually awarded me grazing rights, which is a high honor. So you talk about if the economy tanks and you're looking for a place to go, I can always go to Uganda. Actually, it's not Uganda, it's Bonaro Katara region, and King Solomon, which they've been around for years and years. He awarded me, he gave me a certificate, so that means if I had any type of livestock, that I could take them and let them graze right in somebody's front yard. And there's nothing you can do about it because it's kind of a treaty amongst the people and the king and the country and all that. So that's something I bet none of our listeners have.
So episode 9 with the aliens. What's that all about? I just saw a picture on your Facebook.
Episode 9. Hold on, I don't even remember which one is that.
Well, it's got a lot of green men and a spaceship on it. Looks like it's your sombrero.
Oh, I see that one. Yeah, that was Roswell, New Mexico.
Oh, cool.
And
All right.
you know, there are many theories about the aliens and all that, and over there, it's there's the conspiracy that we don't have aliens. It's the other way around.
Looks kind of like Elvis.
Town, it revolves around aliens. They have the museum, and yeah, lots of documentation in that museum. Like, and I in the video I played like the skeptic guy, you know, because I want to believe, but I don't know, that kind of thing. But it's a great little town.
That, Roswell is interesting. They still have that pretty highly guarded. And you know, the thing we have to get with I talk about Kevin again, he's the expert on that, but there's a lot of controversy. For a while, they said, like as far as religion, and it was so well planned and articulated that the divine plan made more sense than evolution. But now, as we gather scientific evidence and are able to solve and put into place some of the stones. Maybe we get Dwayne can talk about that to us someday. You know, in the religious sector, they can, you know, you could blame it aliens possibly as, you know, the power of Satan, and, you know, the fallen angels and demons and the power that they possessed back years and years ago. And other people, of course, would landmark that as alien and formed by aliens. And different things like when Enoch was taken up. It's Enoch was not, where he was taken up. That was actually an alien. And for some of the things now I get back to this because it's travel. And in different geographical locations, some of the old the writings and drawings and that basically show the same thing in completely different country. Like carrying in handbags and the chariots of fire and chariots of the gods. Remember that the guy that wrote that book?
Yeah, that's a great book. And in this museum in Roswell, they have the picture of I think it's called it's an ancient relief from the Mayans, I believe. It's somewhere in Mexico in Palenque, I want to say, but it's not Palenque. And it does look like an astronaut, controlling instruments. And stuff.
The astronauts, and there's several of those markings in several different geographical areas that are far away that resemble, and the perception of the artist rendering is so related for some of the items on there. So that is something there that technology, and they're gaining more headway now by the day. And of course, you know, the pyramids and maybe relative to power grids and communication points around the world and things like that. And, you know, you think about the theory that the aliens came here to plant the seeds and to make changes in people and things like that. And the reason they haven't come back is because maybe they knew thousands and thousands of years ago that their world would last a certain amount of time. And why not come and prep this one and make sure that it survives and doesn't blow itself up and is still in decent shape when they decide to come back in, you know, 1 million years. So there's a lot of controversy on that. Of course, if you're the Bible believing, you have other aspects and thoughts, but there's so many things that cross back and forth in the Bible that relates. Of course, it is history. The Bible is one of our best sources of history. But some of the aliens and some of the ancient discoveries they've made.
Hey, Robert, that one place you went to out there where everybody lives off the grid, what was that Earth City? I forgot.
Oh, this is in near Taos, New Mexico. It's called, they call it the Earthship community, like Earthship. And it's they live off the grid. They make the dwellings out of like tires and bottles, you know, discarded tires and bottles and stuff like that. and they recycle all the water. Like they use their main water source is rain, and then they purify that for drinking. But then the gray water, you know, when the water that they use after they wash the dishes or bathe, they use it for the plants and also to flush the toilets. And then that black water from the toilets, they use it for compost to grow their food. They're trying to be 100% self-sustained.
So do they?
And it's very interesting.
Do they shun technology completely, or like?
Oh no! They have solar power panels and great big lithium batteries to power. You know, it's not. They're not shunning technology. They just want to live off grid. You know.
That kind of sounds like my place now. You know, made out of tires and scraps. And
it's very interesting. I forget exactly what the idea is for the tires, but it's to make the center of gravity lower, something like that. It's very interesting.
It's called Earthship.
Earthship communities, and you know they try to make it sustainable. You know, give back, not produce any trash. You know, give back to the earth the same as the earth gives to us.
And do you know like the prerequisite to get in there? Is it like a timeshare, or is it like community, or?
I don't know exactly, but you can rent an Airbnb. You can rent a home for a week and live there with them, and I'm sure you could find out how to join the community. They own a huge piece of land there west of the Rio Grande.
And that's in New Mexico, right?
New Mexico, yeah, just west of Taos.
Okay.
I'm thinking of a place, you know, too. I like the RV. I found out some of those RVs, if you get the gasoline powered, they're not as desirable. But I've seen some excellent buys on RVs that you can, of course, getting there would cost you. But I mean, how much you're going to have to drive around if you're fleeing, you know, the city.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, we pulled it up online here. I think I'm going to check into that. But I'm looking for a place in the future, maybe to, you know, make my home.
So how much longer is Mini Teeny going to be useful to you before you've got to replace it?
For a wall.
I put a lot of miles on it, and by the way, you know my trailer, that's what I call it, it's a micro mini 19-footer. And I want to take it to Alaska. I want Mini Teeny to visit all 49 states. You know, I'm waiting for the bridge to Hawaii one of these days. But at least the 49 cool. states that I can drive to, I wanna drive. I'm still missing Alaska, North Dakota, and
Stephen's place.
And Vermont.
Well, you
right
can kind of get a preview of those places now by going to a channel called Slim Potato Head. I don't know if you know.
I know of him, yes.
He's been to those places, and his RV, of course, is one of those A-frame things. And
I like the A-frames, but it feels like a little bit of a pain in the butt to assemble that thing whenever you get to a place. I don't know.
It definitely
lasts for a while.
Yours is all just basically park it, level it, and go.
Well, I'll tell you, Bob, talking about Alaska, like I say again, I'm the type of guy that has a story for everything. I remember Dad, when he had gotten out of World War II, wanted to go to some place and get away and just kick back for a while. So him and a partner of his decided to go fishing on a big lake up in Alaska. And I forget, it might have been Anchorage. And I remember when I was a little kid, he had some matches that said Anchorage on it. But I don't know if that's because they were out there. So anyway, they're setting out there on the dock, and all of a sudden they see this biplane, waterplane. Flying, and he takes a pass through and comes down, comes back one more time, circles around, and lands that plane on the water without hardly cutting it. And Dad said, that guy's an ace. And so they're sitting there having coffee, and this guy he zooms in, takes it pretty easy, pulls up to the dock in this airplane and gets out, and it was the very famous actor Robert Taylor. And,
oh, really?
And if you remember, he was a World War II ace. And Dad seen him clear at the end. Dad was good about, you know, recognizing people anyway. He says, Robert Taylor. And he goes, yes, sir. And he was walking, and they talked a little bit, and he asked him about the fish. And he says, say there. He says, my dad did. He had a way with people. He says, say there. He says, would you mind, you know, sitting down here and having a cup of coffee with us so I can tell the boys back home I had my morning coffee with Robert Taylor? And he said, love to. He said they sat there for a couple hours and talked about fishing and World War II and just this and that, and I don't know anything else besides Robert Taylor except he was a major star for many years, and that Dad said he was a heck of a nice guy to him. So, but anyway, that happened in Alaska. Dad wanted to find, one of the best and nicest places you could go. He didn't want to travel because he never wanted to really ever see the ocean ever again after spending 2 years on a ship in World War II. And I bet that he didn't see the ocean over 2 or 3 times, and he died at 91. And he says, I never want to see that water ever again.
Well, you talking about water and stuff like that, different places. Where is Florida's tallest waterfall?
Oh, that's up in the Panhandle, which is, the Panhandle
Florida.
Probably rightfully belong to Georgia or Alabama, since it doesn't really look like Florida all that much, but it is up there. It's very close to the Alabama border. It's called, and I'm drawing a blank, right? It's called Falling Water State Park.
So we're from like Destin.
The only reason it's why it's so tall because it goes into a sinkhole.
We're from like Destin. Now I've been to Destin a few times.
It's let me look at my map here real quick, but it's a little to the northwest of Destin. I would say. It's actually northeast of Destin.
Okay.
It's north of that area that is called the Forgotten Coast of Florida, which is it's like a big bend on the Gulf of Mexico. It's just north of that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely have to check that out next time I go down there.
And it's very, very close to I-10, so it's very, very accessible, very easy to get there. And
Okay.
It's also very close to the highest point in Florida, which is called Britton Hill, which is right by the Alabama border.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm definitely
gonna
have to check
300
that
feet
out.
above sea level. I mean, it's not really nothing to write home about, but that's the highest point.
You ever go to Destin?
Yeah, Destin to me is the best beach north of the Caribbean. I mean, it's this
so
white sand. It's made out of quartz, so it's this white, super fine dusty sand that it's one of those perfect beaches that you associate with the Caribbean. Blue waters, and you walk for 50 yards, and the water is still by your waist. It's one of those things.
Oh yeah. I went down there. My sister got married a few years ago down by Sarasota, and me and my daughter, she's 15 now, and we spent 4 days in Destin. And one morning, it was kind of a hassle to wake her up at like 6 o'clock in the morning. But I was like, we want to go out there, the sunrise on the white beaches, and it was just. After that, she loved it. She was happy, but. Yeah, I'll never forget that morning.
6 a.m. That's tough for me to get up to.
Beaches on the Gulf of Mexico are amazing. Yeah.
So you plan on going down to the Keys anytime soon?
I'm kind of overdue. It's been over a year, believe it or not. I used to go a lot, but then I decided I wanted to see the rest of the country too. But definitely before I go back on my road trip to Alaska, which I'll probably leave sometime in late March or April. I gotta head down there at least once.
So I've never been to the Keys. What would you say I should probably go? Because I do want to go, and I eventually will. What should I do? What's your favorite place down there?
Well, it is a really long island chain, so it's quite long actually. It's actually from Miami or from the bottom of the state to Key West. You
7 miles.
4 hours. But if you like fishing, it's fisher's paradise. I mean, there's so much you can do down there, and snorkeling. The snorkeling off the coast on the Atlantic coast.
Where did you snorkel?
I'm sorry.
Like what town did you go and snorkel?
Let's go key. The first key is called Key Largo. It's very close to Miami. It's about an hour from where I am right now. And they have a state park. It's called the John Pennycamp.
Okay.
And they take you on a boat to the coral reef, and that's probably some of the best snorkeling you can do around here. They take you out to the coral reef, and you are in the corals and all kinds of tropical fishes. It is amazing.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Thank you.
And And then Key West would be the other end. That's it's more of a party town, but there's a lot of history. Hemingway used to live there. They have the bar where Hemingway used to get drunk at night. There's also a lot of fishing and lots of culture. It was at a crossroads too. Cuba was it still is 90 miles away, so there's a lot of Cuban influence in there too. And they dispute with Tampa that they invented the Cuban sandwich. I'm not certain which one of the two invented it, but
Let's look this up.
It's
Southwest.com.
definitely a unique place, different from anywhere in the United States. And then you have many different festivals. You have Fantasy Fest, for example. If you want to see a bunch of middle-aged people naked on the street,
Wow. I might run into Dave or something.
Hey, that's my kind of party town there. That's
Of course, there's also Lobster Fest where you can.
Oh, yes.
That's when the Florida lobster season kicks in, and every month.
Everywhere we went, we found these free lobsters in these little boxes and traps that were all out there, and I guess you just go by and take what you want.
Don't do it naked. Running down the street.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty strong law on that. We went down there. In fact, I went down there one time. We drove to the Keys, and we landed in Miami in the middle of the night. We rented a car, and we drove and drove and drove. Then we got out on the water, and we drove and drove. We finally turned around and went back and went to Miami. We didn't know where we were at. But if you go down to, is that called that Hemingway's? Is that the name of that bar?
Sloppy Joe's.
Oh, Sloppy Joe's. Okay. Well, if you go in there, I can tell you right where to find my a business card that I put in 20 years ago. You can look for it.
Oh, yeah. Still there. Okay. Let me know, because I'll probably be going there when the snowbirds go back north, probably late February.
I remember there's some place we stopped at Marathon Keys.
Yep.
There was some reason we stopped there. It was interesting. Everybody ought to drive that and go down through there at least once, just like Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
Let me make us legal, then we can continue till 11:08. This is KCXL Liberty, 11:40 a.m. and 102.9 FM in Kansas City and 104.7 FM in Kansas City. It's all good.
It's all good.
It's all good. Oh, can you do any impersonations, Robert?
I've done Elvis singing, but speaking, I have to. It will be a Cuban Elvis with my accent, so I don't know.
What's your favorite Elvis song, Bob?
Okay,
are you ready for a quick one here? Let me see if I can. I've never tried it before. Let me see if I can do this. Are you lonesome tonight? Do you miss me tonight? Are you sorry we've drifted apart? Does your memory stray to a bright summer day when I kissed you and called you sweetheart? Do the chairs in your parlor seem empty and bare? Do you gaze at your bald head and wished you had hair? Is your heart filled with pain? Shall I come back again? Tell me, dear, are you lonesome tonight? I wonder if you're lonesome tonight. Yeah, it just comes to me. I've never done that before, but it just comes to me, and I'm able to do a change of voice at the drop of a hat.
You want to plug your album, Robert? I think it's still available on
Amazon. A song every week.
No. My videos are YouTube, Traveling Robert. I'm also on Amazon Prime, the videos, and then my music is available pretty much everywhere. Robert Morales is my name, so everywhere.
And I know you got like merchandise and stuff you can go get on your website. I saw that.
Travelingrobert.com/merch, and have T-shirts, CDs, stickers, bumper stickers, all kinds of stuff there.
Awesome.
That's merch like Fred Merch.
Yeah, and yeah, I thought merchandise would be too long, so I just.
You can't do a Ricky Ricardo for us, I take it, huh?
He probably could do one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I
Lucy.
could. Nah, not really. I'll take a pass on that
Well,
one.
we got this. So we're going to be signing off here in just a few, but we've had the Traveling Bob Salvation Show, traveling show on today, and that's Bob Morales.
Salvation Show. Jeez.
I got confused for a moment in brevity there.
So your next trip is to Alaska then?
The next long trip is to Alaska with a pit stop in Kansas City on my way there.
Yeah.
We'll be glad to host you, and we'll show you around town some of the destinations here.
That would be great. Yes, I would love to do that.
Find a few places you can boondock with mini teeny. I think you can do it down at the Ameristar. They got trucks and RVs down there all over the place.
Oh, there's quite a bit of places around Kansas City you can park your RV.
Most anybody's front yard.
Yeah. Dave's front yard.
Yeah, well, here in Miami,
like
I
a
can
car
only
lot
park
over
in
there.
my own front yard, but that's a different story.
That kind of reminded me of Christmas Vacation.
Yeah. Well, what's his name? Brandy Quaid. They're dumping into that sewer. That was a fun. I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch that again. That's one of the great shows.
The crapper's full.
You got his hose out there and his underwear with a hat on, but I like the one
That's
when
probably the messiest job you got, isn't it? Dumping that stuff, the gray water, shall we say?
Christmas. Remember that, Mark? The happiest Christmas.
Where'd you go, Robert? We'll lose you. Go, Robert.
Yeah.
Oh, dumping that gray water is probably the messiest job of the RV, isn't it?
It's my least favorite thing to do after unhitching and hitching every time. But yeah, you get used to it, and you put your gloves on and hold your breath, and it's okay.
Well, Bob, I got another question for you. As you know, on the Steve Barnhart Show here, with all his friends and guests and relatives and all that, we're kind of an abstract show, so anything goes. But, say Traveling Bob. Now, would you happen to be a Mason?
No, not yet.
Well, if you do, then you'd really be Traveling Bob. Because Mason travels, and it's a traveling man is the description. I don't know, can I give away those secrets?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, all right, I got third one back here. So, anyway, traveling man, if you're a Mason and all that, of course, depends on your beliefs in the Mason. My mom told me that not to do it, but I spoke with a guy that was a Mason for 65 years and asked him about that, the satanic relationship, any of this, and he goes, Steve, I've been a Mason for 65 years. He was 85 years old. He goes, I've never heard anything like that. He says, not to speak for some other lodges, in the Masonic realm. But anyway, I'm just saying, if you were a Mason, you'd really be a traveling man by law. So it might be a consideration. Plus, it's a good organization to be in. But you know who the ultimate Mason was, Bob?
Nope.
Perry.
Do we get another song to play of his?
Perry Mason.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Like I say, you got to expect anything on this show. Well, we're going to get off. We're going to let you off, Bob. We thanks for sharing some of your humor, and we got to hear your song and that. We'll have you back on the show again, but you have a happy holiday season and all that jazz. I'm going to get the email from Dave so we can stay in contact too. And
well, he is on Facebook. Remember that.
Probably. Oh, okay.
Facebook, yeah, Facebook, the Traveling Robert as well. Or if you want to send me an email, to robert@travelingroberts.com. I mean, it's easy to remember.
Okay, Robert.
So,
and Robert Morales.
Yes, sir. So, hey, have a great holiday season, you guys too, and thank you so much for having me.
Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
No problem. Enjoyed it. Yeah, he was kind of that was a nice guest to have today, wasn't it, Joe?
Yeah.
So anyway,
It
we
was
got
different, learn different areas. And
yeah. And we got Dave here today, and we got.
You're probably gonna kick my butt because I talk a lot today, but.
Well, no, that's fine. That's what it's here for. I run out of things. Sometimes I zone out and I forget where I'm at.
I know you were at the money, and then you forgot he was on.
I had
and you're
trillions
like,
of dollars
I know.
in my hands.
And I'm
Trillions.
Are you gonna talk? Are you gonna? No, I'm kidding.
I lost it for a minute. Just wait a minute. Who am I? Then we got Dwayne Fields with
He's about to make it rain
Dwayne's.
with trillions.
Dwayne is D-U-A-N-E, and Fields as in cornfields or baseball fields.
Right.
Dwayne Fields, that's instilled. He does that for a reason because you're not going to forget it. And anyway, Dwayne's going to be uplifting your spirit and sharing some of the ministry that he offers, and some make you feel better about yourself and about the Bible and the study of the Bible, which is exquisite. And other than that, our holiday show will be. Do we have 2 more before Christmas, or one more show before Christmas?
Before we play that song, December 21st, down at the Mexican restaurant there in Raymore?
Raymore is a city.
Yeah. The El Dorado, the one I DJ'd at this past weekend, we're going to have a big Christmas party out there.
Let me know. Say all my family is gone and passed and all that, and I don't have a lot to do.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to make sure you came out and kind of hung out with us. And
oh, yeah, do that. Yeah, we can do that.
We'll have a black margarita. And
oh, yeah.
Is that because it's old?
Right, we're going to kill the KCXL broadcast. We'll continue on Facebook for a few more minutes.
Here's Evelyn Roberts singing.
And Traveling Robert, Steve Barnhart, and the Steve Barnhart Show sing Be Careful Out There.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas. There's another show. No wonder I'm more out when I get through with this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got 3 different.
I was around the world twice during this show.
Yeah.
We did.
Now, in American dollars, how much is that 50 trillion worth?
Probably about
Might be
$3.
able to get a burger out of it or something. I mean, maybe, yeah. I mean, maybe a small meal.
Yeah.
A Whopper Junior.
I
had a Whopper, un-Whopper yesterday.
I actually lived through a huge inflationary thing when I was in Vietnam for 4 months.
Wave, David.
All right.
Well, there's a lot of people saying that dong.
Wave.
Oh,
Hey,
well,
how's it
I tell
going,
you what,
Dave?
I was there before.
All right, we're back on Facebook
the Dawn
for
became
just a
the
couple of
#1
minutes.
form of
Wayne
currency.
is in the
It was
house.
a new
He's gonna
currency.
Well,
record
yeah, the old one was called
his
the
show
piastre.
for Christmas.
And the piastre
I ain't gonna be here.
was like
And
a
I ain't gonna be
dollar
on New Year's
originally.
Eve, so we're gonna
And
record
within
one
4
today,
months-
record one next week.
David's going to be partying on New Year's. He's going to be down at the club, throwing his hands up in the air.
Well, yeah, I had some
Is that right, David?
Money from
Drinking a black margarita, throwing your hands up in the air.
As long as I don't have to drive,
I got 12 million.
Well, I don't know.
We got Uber?
You might pick you up some.
As a diabetic, you're not
Talk
supposed to have
about
some
it. Pop up.
carbs.
There's in the same.
The only
he knows
alcohol
the
I've
same
found so
things
far that
I
don't
do.
have carbs is
Zimbabwe
whiskey.
dollar.
Well, hey,
Dinar,
we can have some whiskey then.
Dong. I bought enough that I'll be set real good. If any of them do.
We get you some Jack Daniels or
There we go.
Johnny Walker.
Let's go ahead and say something to kill Facebook, Steve.
Oh, we're still on Facebook.
Yeah,
We're gonna kill. We're gonna kill Facebook. Sorry for all that foul language. No, Fields Ministries here. We can't do that, and I wouldn't do it anyway. But anyway, folks, Facebook listeners, Catfish Joe Rawlings. He's recording me for my profile. Yeah, I think my left side's my best side. So you got it over there. Anyway, we talked about Dr. B's health and wealth. We got Catfish Joe DJ services. We got Dave, the station manager here at KCXL, and Dwayne Fields of Dwayne Fields Bible Study in the office in the
Station. Studio.
I drew a blank there, believe it or not. In the studio live today. We're not no cheapies calling from home. We're dedicated. We're here live at the studio. Have a Merry Christmas to you and yours. And have a holly jolly Christmas. It's the happy time of year. Say hello to friends you know. Go and have a beer. Hi-ho, the mistletoe hung where you can see. Say hello to Grandma and kiss her once for me. That's not the way it goes, but I know the correct words to very few songs. And you know what? I'm just nutty enough I can get by with it. I'm just nutty enough that I can sing like that. So anyway, it's see, it made you laugh, didn't it? I just heard somebody say that guy's a fruitcake. Of course I like fruitcake. But anyway, you know, I was a stand-up guy at one time. I don't know what happened to me. I went down
You're sitting down right now.
That's right, I'm sitting down, okay? Who's on first? Okay. What's on second? I don't know who's on third. But anyway, for all you people that, you know, are gracious enough to log in, and to you, say the secret word, the next $100. A very common word, something you say every day. Yeah. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
What came first, the chicken or the egg?
It's a split decision.
No. dinosaur eggs were here before chickens.
Ah, you got me on that one, didn't you?
Alexa told me yesterday. Me and her were chatting.
And why did the chicken cross the road, right? No.
She said, I don't know.
I don't know.
That's what she told
To
me.
get to the other side. That's for her. She'll appreciate that candor and that humor.
You know who Alexa is with Amazon?
I've heard her voice before.
You know, you got that little
Yeah,
robot in your
little
house
robot,
that...
Bob, yeah.
I was like, Alexa, can you be my girlfriend? She's like, no, but I like you.
I've scolded Google. You're not on 11, are you? Oh, okay.
You know why the turkey crossed the road?
What's that?
The turkey crossed the road to prove he wasn't chicken.
Okay. I don't think I've heard that one. Anyway, the humor here with the Dr. B show and his guests. And I'm trying to get this cheap computer to work today, and it didn't. I'm never going to bring it back again.
Well, let's go Facebook.
That's who we had on today, everybody. Go check him out or look up
Steve.
Traveling
Say
Roberts.
goodbye, Steve. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon. Tell your friends and relatives about the show. Come on and see Catfish Joe, Dwayne Field, Steve Barnhart, and station manager Dave.
Poke
Okay?
Dave.
Poke Dave. Poke Salad Dave. Oh, Poke, you said. Yeah. But I think he is being converted as we speak. You know, the Catholics, talk about, the Catholics talk about, losing your salvation. There's only one thing you have to do. If you fear of losing your salvation, stay close to a Baptist.
What if I'm a Baptist?
Stay close to another Baptist.
Kid, I'm not.
You want to get any lunch or anything?
You know what? Dave, I got to go. Then again,